Okay, let's go over printed parts for the Milo. You're going to need a good impact resistant plastic. ABS, ASA is a good start. You're going to need to do heat sets. So let's talk about heat sets real quick. I chose to build a heat set press for this project. LDO includes the brass inserts you need to do the heat sets. For anyone that hasn't done heat sets, let's get a M5 heat set here for you. Uh, the idea is your printed parts. This machine, a lot of the machines that you'll build, need good threads. So they make these things called heat set inserts. And what you'll do is you'll have a soldering iron, hopefully with a custom tip on it, but you can also just use a regular soldering iron. Come on. And these heat sets get pressed into your printed parts. It basically remelts the plastic so you've made a hole in your part. This goes in the hole, and this is heated enough to melt the plastic right around the hole. And you've got these little knurlings on the heat set. So the idea is you press these into your part, and this gives you metal threads in your printed part. So Milo has a lot of these in different sizes, M5, M3, and M2.5. The M2.5s are just for the end stops. There's just a few of them. There's a fair number of M3 inserts, and then there's a fair number of M5 inserts. I ended up with a lot of extra M5 inserts after I was done with the heat sets. Again, a press is nice if you can take the time to build one. It's a nice convenience item. You don't need it. You can do it with just a regular soldering iron by hand. But the press is really good because it lets you put in all your heat sets flat, straight, and then also as you put in each heat set, you're going to need to take the part. And let's see if I can give you a good example here. You're going to need to take the part and put the heat set in. The heat set has a tendency to jump back up a little bit, or you might not be sure that it's level. So after you do each part, you've pressed in the part. The press is nice because you can just let go and the soldering iron gets out of the way. You don't have to find a place to put it down. When you put in a heat set, you're going to need to press this against somewhere flat, or have a tool that happens to have a flat end on it, like this set of clamp tweezers. So when I put in the heat set, I'll either put it on the table and just flatten it on the table, hold it flat, let it cool down, or if I can't get to the table, like say this one right here, this you can't push this down the table easily maybe. So you'll take the tool and hold this flat, and that will let the heat set be fully in the plastic, level with the plastic, and cool off and set that way. And then you'll need to roll through. I did all the heat sets up front. I've seen a lot of creators kind of do it casually on the screen as they go. But I think when you're actually sitting down and building this for yourself, I think you're going to want to probably do these up front. So I went through the instructions, looked at everywhere where there was heat sets, and put those in and had those done up front. All right, so that's enough talk about heat sets. Let's push this out of the way. All right, let's pull in the next item, which is organization for your threads. I like the Gridfinity stuff, so I printed. Actually, didn't print. I already had these. I had spare bins, but you're going to need some organization for all your fasteners. So let me pull out the ardor kit. There's a ton of fasteners in here. There's this, and then there's this, and then there's all these different fasteners. Here's another different size here. So it's going to make sense for you to have some bins. Now you could have something simple, like I have a big stack of plastic yogurt bins, and you could use that. You could just put everything in different yogurt bins. I'm going to use these. Whatever you use, it would be nice if you had a thin strip of painter's tape maybe and a Sharpie, and you could write the size on it, put a label on your bin. I actually do label printing for the permanent bins that I keep. But for these, I may just do a little bit of blue painter's tape just because it's quicker. But yeah, so you need some bends for all your screws. If you don't do bins or disposable containers, I've seen some other people do the Acorn Mills containers, or just any kind of organization. Come up with some organization. Push this out of the way. Let's just roll through all the printed parts. I'll try to describe quickly what each one of the printed parts is. Let's roll through this video. Let's don't take too long. The first set I have in a group here. Oh, what a mess. All right, so the first set I have here, just in random order, is the X table, or yeah, the basically the top table for the Milo. That's what you're going to be CNCing on top of. So you're going to have a table that's like this. Here are the end caps. This end is going to have the stepper on it, and is also going to have drag chain mounts on it. And then the other end is going to be your idler end. This is where the lead screw is going to terminate, and you're going to have a bearing stack here. So the Milo table is a C channel. So you're going to have a C channel like this, and then there's an additional set of 2040s on each side. So I guess that means this is 40 plus 40 is 80. Then you're going to have another 80 here. So this is 160 millimeters wide. All right. Let's see. Then here's the nut block for the X table. The way this works, don't have it handy, but the way this works is your classic brass 8mm lead screw nuts go into each end. One end is tightened hard, and the other end is tightened until the lead screw is snug without any kind of play in it. That way that your machine doesn't have that amount of play in it. So you tighten this one down just until it's kind of snug. It still moves freely, but it doesn't have any play, lash in it. And then this is this goes underneath. This goes to the XY plate. So the table sits over this. The stepper is attached. The stepper and the lead screw is attached to the table. This is attached to the XY plate underneath, and then the stepper causes the table to move back and forth across. And then the other remaining parts are just these are reinforcements that connect the C channel with the 2040 on each side. It's just a way to connect all of the extrusions together. All right, so that's the X-axis. We'll move that out of the way. Let's see. Let's do the Z-axis. Z-axis is pretty simple. You've got a top plate that's got the stepper on it, and the stepper has a belt loop. So stepper's on top and has a belt loop over to the lead screw. So the shaft for the stepper's up. You have a belt that goes across, and the lead screw goes down. So this is the top. You've got a drag chain attachment at the. I'm sorry, that's for the end stop attachment at the top. And then on the bottom, this is at the bottom of the spindle. This is where your bearing is going to ride here. There's not a stack of bearings here because you don't really have to squeeze these. Gravity is pushing down on this bearing already. So it's just a single bearing. So top part, bottom part, and nut block. I've already explained how the nut blocks work. This one's the same. It's got two. It's going to have two lead screw nuts in it. That's the Z-axis. Let's see, what is next? Go over tool setter real quick. This is a Z offset calculator, I guess. If you've ever owned a Voron printer, it's the same idea that it comes over and it touches the tool, or on a Voron printer, it would be the nozzle onto this and clicks it. And that way it knows what the offset from the bed to the nozzle, or in this case, the bed to the tool is. So this lives on your table to one side. It eats up a little bit of your working space, but it sits over there to the side. And especially with the CNC machine, you put the mill in, you don't know where the mill is a little up, a little down, whatever. And this actually helps the machine calculate where the tip of the tool is. There is an electronics board with a micro switch, and there's this thing that goes on top called a sex bolt. It's basically a big flat looking bolt that goes in the top. LDO includes a little kit for this. This is not included in a standard Milo. This is one of the upgrades. I printed these out. These are not part of the Milo or the LDO kit. With my specific VFD, the speed controller for the Spindle, it mounts on the back of Milo, and it needed custom brackets. So I found someone that created these brackets. I want to say maybe Ramco Phil, or I'm not sure. One of the Milo contributors made this. It's in the user mod repo. But this lets me put the HY VFD on the back of the Milo. What else do we have here? We've got the Y-axis. So the Y-axis is just like I explained the X. There is a stepper portion that's on the front. This is what you would see on the front of the Milo. Let me think. No, that would be on the back of the Milo. The stepper would be on the back of the Milo. So the back of the table. This would go on the back, and that's where the stepper would attach. And then on the front, the front piece that you see on the Milo is this. And again, like I described for the X, there's a bearing stack. Bearings that go in here, bearings go in here, and there's collars that pinch that to help make the lead screw rigid and takes away there's a little bit of slack in the stepper. The stepper can actually move a little, the shaft on the stepper can move a little. And this bearing stack plus the collars and clamping takes that little bit of movement out, makes your CNC a little more rigid. There's room for the end stop on the top here with a little bit of wire path. I think that's it for that. Nut block, we've already talked about that. This is the Y nut block. Then you're gonna have the wheel on the front. This is Steve Peterson's Steve Builds, or Steve P, as I used to call him back in the day. This is Steve's hand wheel. Steve has a thing about not putting a set screw into the lead screw whenever possible. That way it helps you, if you ever need to rebuild the machine, if you need to take the lead screw nut off, if you have put a set screw into the lead screw, directly into the lead screw, then you'll have like a rough spot. You may not be able to get the nut back off the lead screw. So he likes clamping parts. The stock hand wheels that LDO and Milo provide have set screws directly in. They go directly into the lead screw. So Steve did up this two-piece wheel that's really cool. It has a little special little printed part that clamps down on the lead screw on the back here. And then for printability reasons, this is two parts, and these M3 fasteners hold this printed part into the wheel. This printed part is mostly based on a open builds clamping drive gear, belt drive gear. And Steve kind of modeled this off of that. It keeps you from having to buy the $10 metal part. You can just print this off, put the two printed pieces together. So I thought that was really cool. So I'm also running the version without, Steve makes a version without the little spinner wheel on it. I don't have a lot of experience with this personally, but when I heard it, it made sense to me. You got to be careful about putting the little spinner on this, especially when this is facing you on front of the machine. And the machine is computer controlled, so it's going to do movements on its own. And so this little thing is going to be spinning like crazy right in front of the machine, right where it can grab your shirt, grab a body part. Yeah, you got to be careful with the little spinner wheel. So I'm running the version without the spinner wheel. All right. And there's the one for the X. That was the one for the Y. This is the one for the X. Let's see. Got the spindle mount. This is one of the few parts that the Milo team wants you to print thicker. So this is, I want to say it's 2.4 millimeter perimeter thickness. And then the infill, I want to say the infill might be a little higher too. The recommendations are on the website. The spindle is held on with 4 really long, I think they're like 100 millimeter long M5 bolts. And the bolts go through, they go into the recess here, and they go all the way through and clamp the whole thing. And then your spindle is right here. So that's pretty much it. I've got attachments for drag train on one side. Let's see, what else? Electronics bay, or I think that they call it electronics table. So here's all the parts for the electronics table. Um, there is a cable tray in the center of the electronics table. I've seen some people have some difficulty with how small this tray is inside, and so I've printed one out that is, I believe it's 6 millimeters wider. It's not much, but it's enough to make the wiring a little easier. Anyway, this is the center. This goes on top of the 2020. This is the side of the electronics table. I've got 4 TPU feet. Important note about TPU, make sure you dry your TPU, especially if you live in any kind of humid environment. Dry your TPU. I live in very, very humid environments, still able to get good TPU prints. But I have to dry mine every time. This is the bracket for the main board, the Milo board. There are 2 brackets here for the. I'm building an LDO kit, so they have special brackets for the LDO power supply. Make sure you print the right parts. Got 2 holders for Vagos for power distribution, and then this is the printed part that holds the LDO input-output board that does PWM control for the spindle and on-off for the spindle. And the last thing are the fronts and backs. So when you go to do your kit, you're going to find that these parts are split in 2. They're split into 2 pieces because they are. These can be printed on a Prusa-sized bed, but they are close to the edges. You have to print it diagonally, and they're still pretty close to the edges. But for whatever reason, they didn't want. I guess they didn't want ABS parts close to the edge of the bed. It can lift your plate and do weird stuff. So Steve actually modeled single piece front and back skirts for the electronics table. So this is Steve's back piece for the electronics table. The electronics table is built out of 5 different pieces of extrusion, and they're not really rigid on their own. So you need the fronts, the backs, and a 2020 in the middle. And when the fronts and backs are split in half, they don't make the table as rigid. So I like these one-piece prints. If you have a printer that can do these, do the one-piece prints. And then this is the front. The front is a little funky. So let me get the piece that goes in it here. I'm using a HY VFD, Hunyang, I think, VFD on it. And that VFD happens to have a detachable display. So even if you're controlling your VFD from the main board from RepRap, the display can still show you a couple things like the one I'm interested in is amperage. It can show you an amperage of how many amps the spindle is consuming. So the display goes in there. HY makes an expansion kit that's specifically for this. It uses a old school cable, like a ribbon cable, with a 2-row connector. So you can buy this kit, and the important part of the kit's basically this roll of cable. It's like almost 1 meter long, I think. They give you the cable to extend it, and you just pop this right off the top of the display, the inverter, and then made a place for it on the front. So there's all that. Get out of here. These are the securements for the fixated continental breakfast. That's the big aluminum plate that goes on your work surface. It's got oval holes on each end, and this is the securement for those. A good first project for your Milo is to remake these out of metal. But these are what you need for now. These are the legs for the electronics table. The last major category is these are all drag chain parts, basically. This part goes on the XY plate, I believe. It goes on the XY plate and transfers the wiring from the Y across to the X. and the rest of these are just termination points for drag chains, and this one's a little organizer, clamps the cable coming onto the back of the Milo. The last printed parts I've printed out are I don't know if I'm going to use these, but I may. I've seen some people use these and they have a little bit of slack on them, or maybe not as accurate as you want to. But these are clamps for the MGN12. It goes into the smaller part here, and then the larger part is on the 2020. And you snap these on and it holds the rail roughly in place for you. So I printed out 4 of those. And the last thing I printed is just something I want to try or play with. Definitely don't do this unless you have an enclosure, but this is a collet fan. So this press fits into your ER collet and blows air onto your work surface. So it tries to blow air and chips out, blow you, like whatever kind of chips you're making, out of the way. I also have a mister system that I bought. I'm going to be trying that as well. The mister needs, unfortunately, it needs an air, right? It needs an air source. So got to try a few different options for air pumps. But that's it. This video has already gone on way too long. So let's cut it off here. There's all the printed parts of the Milo. I'm going to start building the Milo in sections. I'm going to do a quick review of each piece of the Milo as I go. I'm not going to bore you with build video, but we'll do a little summary of each part as I go. So stay tuned, more to come. See ya.